Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Emerald Coast. I am Jay Patrick. I'm a member of this fellowship, and today I have the opportunity to be your service leader. The UU Fellowship of the Emerald Coast is a religious community united by UU principles and committed to service, spiritual growth, and a caring fellowship. If you're visiting today, you will find more information about us on the back of your order of service and on our website, uufec.com. Please fill out a visitor card by the table, by the front door, if it's your first time visiting us, so we can connect with you and send you information about upcoming events. We do not require a common creed for membership, but we do share certain principles and values. We feel each of us is on a spiritual journey, and we share with each other our quest for a more meaningful life. We welcome you to share that journey. We have several announcements today listed on your order of service, but in addition to that, we have a few members of the congregation who have announcements. So in whatever order, Kathy, Jane, and Denny.
Tall people. I'm Denny, your treasurer, and of course, you know what I'm here up to remind you of. We're in the middle of our pledge drive, and we've had about 60%. Everyone turn them in already. That's just great. We're doing well. And we're about 80% of our goal. But this year, as we all know, we've had a good amount of financial challenges for many of our members. So please, for those who haven't pledged yet, please think through and pledge forward, but we're doing okay. The fellowship will do just fine, but we need your support. So please fill out your pledge form. We have them in the back, or come talk to myself or Judy or Bill. Who else is on my treasury? The tall guy behind me. And that should do it. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Jane Park. I'm co-chair of the Social Justice Committee. Two quick things. Last week we did postcards. This week I can hand some out to go home. We're not doing them second hour, but if anybody wants to take some home, I have some more. And then as I sit there with my postcards, I'll also have a sign up for next Saturday's No King's March. So if anyone can go, whatever you can do, just show up, just come see me in the back and we'll talk. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Kathy, and next week is the 5th Sunday, and remember on 5th Sunday the kitchen is closed. So everyone, if you're bringing a snack, only bring cookies that can be held in your hand. There will be no forks, plates, any of that stuff, because we don't have enough help to clean up the kitchen. So 5th Sunday is always going to be just handhelds. Thank you.
After the service, we have a brief time for refreshments and conversations, followed by what we call second hour. where you can choose a small discussion group that interests you. Today we have the following second-hour groups going on. We've got Healing from Religious Trauma with Melissa Wynn in the library. We've got Beginner's Crochet with Alex Jones in the stage room, choir practice with Cecile in the harmony room, and then Speaker Circle at the front. The prelude will prepare us for service. Our chalice lighting reading today was written by Vanessa Rush Southern. We light our chalice, symbol of our faith, for truth sought through a questioning heart and an attentive mind, and for love pursued through obstacles inside and outside our own human heart, and for forgiveness and all it entails, the place where truth and love meet and merge. Please stand in body or spirit to join in the singing of hymn number 298, Wake Now, My Senses, verses 1, 3, and 4. The children and young at heart are now invited to come forward for our time for all ages, which will be done by Amanda today.
I know, they're no kids, so. Wow. As chair of religious services, this is one of those Sundays that strikes fear in your heart. All of the recordings from Reverend Kathy, we do not have. They're not in the PowerPoint. So that's why we skip the opening words, sermon, etc. However, we are also very good at thinking on our feet. And we have an extra treat too. Do you want to do something first with them or later? They're just being okay. That's for later. So, as it turns out, this story is a Buddhist story that I found a little disturbing, and it will give us something great to talk about during our discussion during the sermon time. Okay, so be thinking. This is a story about a man in India who shopped at his city's local outdoor market, as you do every day. So he was used to dealing with crowds there. But this, today, was an especially boisterous crowd. Instead of the natural flow of shoppers going from one stall to the next, people all seemed to be going the same direction, completely unaware of the chaos they were creating. His irritation grew, and he began to feel angry at the people who were disturbing his peace at the market. He opened his mouth to yell at someone blocking his way when another bumped into him, causing him to drop most of the lovely produce he had just purchased. He tried to pick it up, but it was kicked and trampled by others in the crowd. Now filled with anger and fire, he was determined to see what was behind this disturbance. He gathered what he could from the ground and began to follow the crowd. The more he pushed his way through, the more his anger grew, till he finally made it to the front of the crowd. There he was met by the round, smiling face of the Buddha. The revered Buddha sat on a makeshift wooden platform, surrounded by offerings of fruit and flowers from the many people who were there hoping to get blessings from him. Sensing the man's anger, the Buddha leaned down and said, "Peace doesn't come from outside, my son. It comes from inside. Because it is inside, no one can take it from you. Only you can give it away." This did not make the man feel any better. He said, "You stole my peace. I was fine until you arrived." And he spit on the Buddha's feet. He left feeling quite satisfied with himself. But the next day, when he awoke, he thought about what he had done and felt awful. You've probably been there. He knew the only way he could forgive himself was to go back to the Buddha and ask him for forgiveness. So this time, with his heart full of remorse and his mind set on forgiveness, he made his way quietly through the crowd, greeted by smiles and assistance. Before he knew it, he was again standing in front of the Buddha, this time with his heart wide open. Once again, the Buddha greeted him with a message. You must forgive yourself, and remember, love is the only way. The man fell to his knees and touched the Buddha's feet. I do not deserve your kindness after what I did to you yesterday. I do not deserve to be loved. I cannot go on unless you forgive me. The Buddha replied, I'm sorry, my son. That is not something I can do. I cannot forgive you. And he helped the man to his feet. Please, you must. I am begging you. The man hung his head in shame. The Buddha lifted his chin and looked him in the eye as he said, I can't forgive you because the man who stands in front of me today is not the same man who was here yesterday. That man is gone, and this man has done nothing to warrant forgiveness. I had to sit with that for quite a while, trying to figure that out and think if I agreed with that. Luckily, they went on to analyze it a little more for us. It says, this story touches on the power of the mind to skew your perception. Once agitation became the man's filter, he started to blame everything outside of himself for creating his anger. And then the next day when he awoke, his mind was calm and he felt remorse. But again, he tried to look outside himself to validate his remorse, like someone else has to forgive me. The Buddha did not give him that satisfaction because that would have been stealing the man's power. The man needed to recognize that every day is a new day and he can make new choices. One of those choices is the ability to let go of the story, release the baggage and burdens of yesterday, and choose today to forgive, accept, and love. So later on, when we're not listening to the sermon, we'd like to hear some of your ideas on that too. Your ideas on forgiveness, your ideas on letting go, forgiving yourself, but also that idea of, I can't forgive you because you're a different man today than you were yesterday. That's the hardest part to me. So anyway, we'll look forward to hearing your ideas. Thank you.
We will now have well, we're not sending kids off to the class, so we're not going to do the song of blessing, right? And just the next thing come up, sharing of joys and the sharing of joys and concerns. This is a practice, a tradition we have in our fellowship. You are welcome to come up, drop a glass pebble into the water silently or while speaking a few words into the microphone. This practice shares our joys and helps us to support each other in our sorrows. Remember to tell about others only with their permission. This is a sacred time for us. Service is usually marked for a brief meditation and prayer, and I am not going to pray over y'all because it's not my normal style. But I will say just a brief word that could be thought of as prayer-ish, but that is to always remember the divinity within yourself and the uniqueness that you are. And when you feel doubt and fear and confusion, trust yourself and love yourself, because I think that will get us further than most things, and I think you can get yourself further than a lot of things. We now are going to jump to our offering after our song of dedication. Greeters will take up the offering. Generosity is a spiritual practice. Our fellowship is supported by our pledges and donations. If you are paying your pledge with a check today, please make a note in the memo line. We also have a tradition we call Share the Plate, where we split equally all cash donations and checks not marked as pledges with a local charity. For the month, our Share the Plate partner is the Youth Village, which provides a safe place for educational and recreational activities for children in our community. Please see the Zelle code if you prefer cashless payments. This would normally be the part of our service where we jump into the wonderful words of Reverend Kathy. Unfortunately, today we won't have those. So I'm going to bore you guys for a brief moment with a couple of my own thoughts on forgiveness and my own experiences with it. Most importantly, I think in my life I've experienced two basic kinds of forgiveness. There are a lot more. The two that I think I've had the most experience with are personal forgiveness between myself and other people, and then far more difficult, the one I found to be far more difficult in life is the forgiveness that we give ourselves. So as some background, I don't know how much of you know me that well, but I grew up very religious in a Mormon family. Very, very Mormon family to top it off. My mother is old Mormon. Her family goes Mormon way back in Utah. They were pioneers and have been doing that as long as you can imagine, just all the way back. And then my dad's side of the family, they were more recent converts to Mormonism, but he was like a bishop when I was a kid, and just a very strongly spiritually Mormon family. My parents are phenomenal people. I hope someday some of you get the chance to meet them. They are truly kind Christians. I would call them that. They truly believe in what they do. They truly try to be good people. But with life, people can be good people, can be wonderful people, and we can disagree with them very strongly. And I was kind of a little knucklehead when I was a younger guy. And so by the time I was in my teenage years, I think I was 15, and I kind of had it all figured out, I thought. And so I knew at that time that I wasn't Mormon anymore. But more than that, I was very confident in the opinions I had, and just very done with dealing with, going to church and being a part of that culture. And so I very stubbornly sat down with them one day and just it's like, hey, I am not Mormon anymore. And kind of, I think, on some level, shattered the little universe of our family. I was pretty rough with it, pretty straight with them. Told them I didn't want to go to church, didn't want to be involved anymore. And for a family that has that as your core cultural component, it was hard. It's as hard as any one of your children coming to you and telling you that they're super conservative and don't agree with any of your political opinions or views, or don't believe in your spiritual beliefs. It's something that's difficult to hear, and so it caused some pretty immediate stress in the family and difficulties. We would fight, and we would be angry at each other. We would make fun of each other's personal beliefs. Parent to child and child to parent, and it came both ways. I was giving it out too. And this went on for 2 or 3 years until I ended up enlisting in the Marine Corps and leaving home pretty early. I was just turned 18. I technically signed the documents when I was 17 and graduated early to get out of home, just to kind of get out of this situation. Again, it was never horrific. It was never abusive. They were kind people, but they wanted me to be Mormon. They asked me to keep coming to church. I was living in their house. So these kinds of things caused a lot of stress and a lot of tension and a lot of anger. And I, to this day, remember conversations I had with my parents where I said things that haunt me to this day. Never horrific, but just mean, and not in the spirit of what I believe now, and coming from a place of anger and frustration about the situation that I was in. So that period of my life went on for a while. I enlisted in the Marine Corps, and then there was probably a period of 4 or 5 years where we did not talk much. We were just very, very distant, and I think we had just kind of walked away from everything that was put on the table from both sides. And it was just the way things were for me at that point. I kind of that was my life, and I was doing all right at the time. I had everything put together. I thought I was, Mr. Had it all going for myself. And fast forward a few years, I'm now living in Tallahassee, and I had just dropped out of Florida State, and time had passed. My parents had started to try very slowly to talk to me more, but more intrinsically what I was watching was change. I was the second of 6 kids in my family, so big old family, and they had a lot of experience both dealing with me and my situation and what we went through together, and then the younger siblings that came after, some who did leave the church and some who stayed. And it changed them. In the same way that that experience would later change me, I kind of watched them change over time. They became apologetic about things that they had done and said, and ways that they had asked me to go to church with them, that, just very slow, simple apologies that started to make me question how I was thinking and feeling about them, and the words I was using with them, and how I was treating with them and communicating with them. That went on. Again, I was in Tallahassee. I wasn't in a great place at the time. I dropped out of school. I was in between apartments, and just going through it, and also kind of seeing them change and starting to ask myself questions about how I had acted during that process, and how I had pushed them away, and how angry I was at them, and how that anger was hurting me and was keeping me from having a relationship with people who are, again, phenomenal people, really kind people, who had changed in that time, and who had grown past, wanting me to believe what they wanted to believe. They just wanted me to be in their life. And so seeing that slow, gentle influence and that slow, gentle change in them caused a change in me, and brought me to a place where I began to want to both forgive them, but want to understand why I was so angry about it all, and maybe forgive myself over that. So fast forward another year. This is probably 1.5 years ago. This is probably when our relationship got back to normal. We just started talking again. I started coming over to visit them from Tallahassee, and then 6 months later, I actually moved here. 6 months to 1 year later, I moved here, and that's when I showed up here, specifically because I wanted my family back, and I wanted to have a relationship with them. And we had gotten to a point where I think we had all forgiven each other. And I say this story, but man, there were points when I was quite convinced I was never going to have a relationship with my family again. And looking back today, I know that that's because I wasn't ready to forgive them. Because again, there are a lot of difficult parents out there. These are not difficult parents. These are good people that I couldn't forgive yet. And discovering that forgiveness freed me from so much anger and weight that I was carrying, freed me from loneliness that I didn't realize that I was really, really experiencing. But to be cut off from your family in that way, it hurts over time. And it was a pain I didn't need to feel. It was forgiveness that got me there, from both sides, them forgiving me and me forgiving them. Later on, over the last year, I have struggled with the time I lost. The time I lost knowing my parents, the few years there where I was not talking to them a lot were the years where my youngest 2 siblings were in their teenage, middle school, high school years. And I missed out on a lot of time with those 2 siblings. My younger brother, William, and my younger sister, Cher. And they're now both graduated from high school, and one's in college and the other's here and working. But thinking about that time I lost, I really did not like myself. And I really questioned what decisions I had made and how I had acted, and because my parents were difficult, but they were, I've heard horror stories about people's parents. This is not that. And so it was very difficult to sit there and think about the relationship I felt I had lost with my younger siblings, and thinking about how I had acted through that process, and how I hadn't forgiven them, and how there was still a lot of anger, and still anger today, issues that I still deal with today. Small things you think about and you get frustrated with, but I mean, it began to sit deeper and deeper with me, and left me in a place where I didn't like the way I'd handled it, and I didn't know how to get back what I had lost. And I couldn't move forward for a while. Ultimately, you talk with therapists, you speak with people who have more life experience than you, and you begin to realize that forgiveness is not just what we give to somebody else. It's something we have to give to ourselves, and it's something we have to give to ourselves every day. It took months of consistently working with myself to just change the patterns of thought, to change I didn't miss out on that time. I have an opportunity to create that time now. I didn't lose out on that relationship. I moved here to create that relationship again. Forcing myself to change the way that I was viewing myself and the decisions I had made to get to a point where I could forgive myself. Because the reality is, y'all are sitting here probably thinking, like, hey, you're past that now, like, this situation doesn't exist anymore. You do have the relationship with your parents, and I do. But to be able to fully take advantage of that, I had to forgive myself. And that was the hardest journey of all, I think, because it's a lot easier to judge yourself than it is to judge somebody else. So as we move into this new year, I would just encourage everyone here to think about forgiveness. Forgiveness is a difficult topic. It isn't always warranted. There are situations where we have to protect ourselves and things we have to do. But when and if we can forgive, and when that is the right choice, remember that it does more than give the other person some ounce of, hey, maybe I don't need to feel bad about that, but it also gives you freedom. Freedom from the weights that you carry, and freedom from the things that you don't have to have in your life. So I'd just like to leave those things with you, and as to continue this conversation, if anybody else has thoughts, comments, stories, personal things that they've gone through with forgiveness, I invite you now just to come forward and briefly share those with us. And thank you for anything you're willing to share.
So, forgiving yourself is definitely something that I've struggled with. People say you forgive and forget. You don't forget. You can get past it, but most of the time you don't forget, and that's okay. And while some people may deserve forgiveness, I believe that a lot of people who intentionally hurt you do not deserve your forgiveness, and that is something that it's a very controversial subject. I've dealt with a lot in my life. Some people I've forgiven, some people I have not. You don't forget the damage that's been done, but you can forgive yourself for words you've said, how you've reacted with the people that you've forgiven, or actions that you've done yourself. You can forgive yourself. It's possible. I've been I'm on my 4th year of therapy outside of the military. And then I went to therapy a little bit during the military. But it's taken most of this time, most of these 4 years, to be able to forgive myself for something I had no control over. I don't forgive certain people because their actions have impacted my life majorly. It's stuff I'm still struggling to get past because it still affects my every day. Again, some people don't deserve your forgiveness, but you can also take those events and forgive yourself, make it different for somebody else. But kudos to you, because I do not have that strength sometimes.
Hey, I'm Stacy. So I saw this shirt. A lot of you know that I really love plants, but saw this shirt a couple years ago that says "Grow through what you go through," and that has probably been one of the most eye-opening kind of. Okay, hold on, because there are people I've grown through it. Everything that's happened to me. There's people I'm never going to forgive, ever. But in holding on to the not forgiving people, you have to figure out how to let go of the bitterness and the hurt and the anger that goes through it. And everybody always says, well, you know, even if not for them, then for yourself. There is another way around this. I didn't have to forgive them, but I had to grow through it. I had to learn from those experiences and decide who I wanted to be, even though I went through that. So no, they don't get my forgiveness, but I get to be a better person. I get to be the person that grew up, who started breaking the cycle. I had a horrible childhood. I didn't break the cycle. My kids definitely were traumatized by some stuff that I did because I was growing still. I was learning still. But now they're one step closer to being able to break that cycle. I didn't have to forgive myself because I didn't do it. I wasn't the person that was in the wrong. I was the one wrong. So whether you choose to forgive or you choose not to, I think either one is okay. As long as you grow through it, you continue to bloom and to become the person that raises up, that doesn't sit in that bitterness, doesn't sit in the anger, doesn't sit in the hurt. So don't forgive them. Who cares if you don't want to? I don't care if they're your family, your friends. I don't care. If you don't want to forgive, don't. But grow. Put your roots down deep within yourself. Find that strength in you to become the person that you get to be, no matter who tried to make you into someone you're not.
I'm Denny. I'll talk a little different approach, and that is, and we have already talked on it some, and that is forgiving myself fully. Yes, we work on forgiving those who hurt us or isolating ourselves from them. It's kind of when it was on the original one for Reverend Kathy, it's forgive them for they know not what they do. Forgive them for what they don't know what they cause, I think is a better way of putting that, which is the same idea. But I'm going to talk on real quick, hopefully. I grew up as being responsible for everything, okay? So anything that happened or whatever was my fault, okay? Was my responsibility. And it started with the loss of my father. I was 12. Some of you heard the story. Pilot, he and his crew out in a typhoon, lost him. A week before that, I messed up as a young kid, 12 years old. First time he'd spanked me in my whole life. Okay. I felt like I had caused that because my father was angry at me, and a week later he was gone. As a naval officer, I sent a crew on a mission. I should not have. They weren't ready yet, and we lost them. My fault, my responsibility. But then I talked to the counselors, and one of the counselors had me sit and talk to my dad, and then had me talk to the crew. And they forgave me. That's when I started learning how to forgive myself, because so much of our anger. Nowadays, it seems like with so much public damning of others, It's just, and then we turn that into angry at them. And we have to watch out what we are doing by getting angry. I'll say really quickly. Mueller, Marine, Vietnam, Purple Heart, fought through the wars, came back, military put him through law school, and instead of going off and getting a great job, worked for the government, FBI, head of the FBI for years, gave. And now people are trying to turn him into the evil. We can't let our anger at that turn us into what they are. We've just got to keep ourselves.
Just a couple of moments of an elderly perspective. Forgetfulness becomes a part of everyday life in your 70s and 80s and whatever is beyond that. But it doesn't have the same, the unintentional forgetfulness does not have the same result or impact on us as intentional forgetting. So when you choose to forget, it can often ease your own mind, bring yourself comfort. But when you don't choose to, you just forget, you feel guilty about forgetting. So just another perspective from an elder point of view on the comforts or discomforts of forgetting.
Hi, I'm Xander. What Jay was saying earlier brought me to remember my relationship with my own mom and my dad. They are very dynamically different people, and me and my mom, we are so different from each other. I'm like a free, wild spirit that wants to do everything I could ever imagine. And then my mom's kind of like almost the opposite of that. Like she wants to do everything like in such a safe way, in such a put together way that feels comforting. And I feel like throughout the past maybe 5-6 years, we've been fighting off and on just because we're so dynamically different. And I'm trying to figure out how to either forgive or learn how to actually like get along with her again. And it's been so hard because she sees everything the opposite way that I do, and we can't, it clashes so much. I'm trying to figure out how to forgive her and maybe change my perspective. So altogether what I'm trying to say is that forgiveness is such a big thing because it brings people back together. But yeah.
Hello, I'm Ryan. This is so cool. I love going to open mics because I love when people just get up and talk about things that are like true for them. And I feel like there's not that many spaces where people just get up and be vulnerable about something they care about. And this is the coolest thing ever. So I'm kind of glad that the PowerPoint went up in smoke. I had an interesting thing that happened this weekend. I have been working on like communication with my therapist, and sometimes it's really hard, like actually pretty much all the time, it's really hard for me to tell people when something that they've done has hurt me, because I am so worried that me bringing that up is going to be a problem. Like, Friday night, one of my coworkers did something that it was so, like, it felt so hurtful. It made me very angry, and I think it was totally inadvertent. Like, I don't think she realized it all, but I was so mad. And I think in the past I've tried to do this thing where I don't talk to them about it, but I also don't want to let myself be angry at them when I haven't spoken to them about it. And so I like contain this anger in like a little pressure pot until it eventually goes away, but it doesn't really. And so Friday night, I was like, you know what? I'm going to text her. I was like, hey, this thing sort of happened, and I felt really upset about it, and it's not your fault that I felt that way, but I do think I'd like to talk to you about it at some point. And I don't want to talk to you about when we work tomorrow. But it was just like really interesting because I was like, I'm going to acknowledge that this is here and we don't have to get into it right away, but it does exist. And it felt so uncomfortable. And then we worked together, and it was really fine. She was really kind to me, and I realized that I do think it was a total accident, even though it was super rude. I think just like objectively not great. But it was interesting because last night I just felt this like amazing feeling of like calm and sort of like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like a feeling of ease with yourself. And I think it was maybe because a lot of times when I am hurt, I will not speak up for the hurt part of myself. And I think when I do that, it actually allows me to let go of that hurt feeling because it's been acknowledged. Yeah.
Special thank you to everyone for your impromptu words. That was awesome, and it had the energy of like a, oh gosh, there's a religious group that does services like that where they get up and talk. And now I forget what it is that I'm up here. Quakers. It was like a Quaker UU mix-up. All right. So next we got the closing hymn coming up. If Every Woman in the World, number 1026 in the teal hymnal. If you are willing and able to stand, we'll sing that now. Our chalice extinguishing reading today is by James Galansky. It goes as follows. Our faith, like a light, illuminates the path before us so that we can face hurt with love, cultivate compassion, live humbly in community, and confront despair with the awe of life. Though our flame is extinguished, our faith shines bright before us. Please stay seated for the postlude. Join us in the back for refreshments and then second hour coming up.